After fleeing Aya, we're provided with a cutscene explaining more about the Spear of Adun. Firstly, there are numerous zealots, so being able to build an army will make sense in the later missions. While severing their nerve cords makes sense, they don't mention reattaching them once Amon has been defeated, especially since they're being surgically removed and can be stored in stasis. Next, you're given a choice of giving to Korhol for the artifact, or Shakuras for the Dark Templar. I choose Shakuras. Upon reaching this planet, Vorazon informs you that the warp gates to Aya have been opened, and that the Zerg pouring through them are destroying Shakuras. Artanis agrees to help evacuate the Dark Templar. On the Spear of Adun, Karax and Artanis discuss how being separated from the Kala affects them. This is good as it makes clear how much they've lost by being severed from the Kala. Next, Artanis discusses Zeratul's death with Vorazon. For unknown reasons, Artanis blames himself for not acting on Zeratul's warning, despite acting on it at the end of the first mission, and even if he'd acted sooner it wouldn't have stopped Amon mind controlling everyone. For those wondering what happened to Mohandar from In Utter Darkness, he died off screen, which is why Vorazon is the matriarch of the Dark Templar. Also, Uran was the expedition leader from the Chaldea missions in Heart of the Swarm that was killed by Niadra. Afterwards you meet Rohanna, a preserver who is able to resist Amon's influence, provide information on past executors, and doesn't comment on Artanis being the hierarch, even though now would be a good time to explain what that title means. I'll explain more about modifying units in another video. Finally, you can see Artanis is now wearing Zeratul's vambrace. Amon's Reach. In this mission to help the Dark Templars evacuate, you have to destroy the infestation on the 4 launch bays, which for no reason can only be cleared by ground units. It's also unclear how they became infested, or why the Dark Templar can't clear them. Also, for no reason the Dark Templar can't merge into Dark Archons, despite having this ability in Brood Wars. A short time into the mission, a rift opens and a Void Thrasher appears. Then it attacks the warp conduit. However, the Spear of Adun attacks the Void Thrasher and it eventually dies. Despite the poor explanation of a Void Thrasher, it's a creature from the Void that's under Amon's control, not an animal native to this planet. After clearing a launch bay using an army of Dark Templar, it launches a ship full of Protoss who were too lazy to free the launch bay they were trapped in, into the warp conduit they were too lazy to defend. They're then warped to an unknown location. There's also some vaults where you can get Solarite, which unlocks new abilities on the Spear of Adun. After de-infesting all the launch bays, the Protoss escape to somewhere, and the mission ends. On the Spear of Adun, Artanis says that they have to prevent Shakuras falling, but Vorazon points out it's already too late. Vorazon then says Shakuras has to be destroyed. Artanis is sad to lose Shakuras and Aya. Then he points out that Vorazon is the daughter of Rash'gal, the former matriarch of the Dark Templar, who Kerrigan infested and Zeratul was forced to kill. Vorazon and Artanis then talk about the past and how the Conclave exiled the Dark Templars. Rohanna points out that the Dark Templars were exiled because they rejected the Kala, which ended the Aeons of Strife. Artanis then criticises Rohanna for no reason. Meanwhile, Karax is trying to restore the Spear of Adun's core to full capacity. However, this requires vast amounts of Solarite, which is only found on every planet you visit. Last Stand. In this mission, Vorazon plans to destroy Shakuras because it's infested with Amon Zerg. She'll do this by overloading the Zelnaga Temple from Brood Wars, even though this temple has the power to wipe out all the Zerg on Shakuras. Artanis then says that they should lure as many hybrid and Zerg on Shakuras, before blowing it up to weaken Amon. For unknown reasons, the Dark Templar no longer have the Uraj and the Khalis, despite having both of them at the end of Brood Wars. You also have to destroy 3 Zenith Stones before the temple can be overloaded. Oddly, there are no Void Thrashers in this mission, despite Amon using many in the previous mission. Once the Zenith Stones are destroyed, you just need to wait for over 1 billion Zerg to come to Shakuras, while fighting off their increasingly large armies, then overload the temple. Artanis then has everyone warp out while he goes to the cutscene. Artanis then decides to overload the temple all by himself, and has to fight off the Nidus Worm and a large Zerg army without the help of his army. I'm also unsure what the Zerg army is planning to do, since attacking something that's about to explode usually causes it to explode. Artanis then gets overwhelmed, but somehow manages to repel the Zerg using abilities he didn't have when fighting Zeratul. Then the crystal falls into the temple, Artanis gets warped out before he's burned alive, and Shakuras explodes. Back on the Spear of Adun, Carax asks if Artanis had some weapon enhancements he didn't know about, so at least they make reference to Artanis' new abilities. Afterwards, Rohanna asks why the Dark Templar destroyed their home, and Artanis tells her that Aya has always been their home. Rohanna mentions how Adun was condemned for saving the Dark Templar, and Artanis replies that this was a noble act. Rohanna says she sees history through the eyes of those who have lived it, while Artanis says you need to look at the consequences of history. Rohanna then decides to view history as Artanis does. Finally, Vorazon tells Artanis that as fighting the Zerg was similar to a never-before-mentioned Dark Templar rite, and he no longer has access to the Kalar, he's a Dark Templar. This could have been an interesting revelation, but unfortunately it goes nowhere. Conclusion. I'm unsure if these missions are poorly thought out or poorly explained. In Amon's Reach you have a Zerg infestation that can't be attacked with Protoss ships, even though many Protoss ships can attack ground units. These ships are full of Protoss who should be able to attack the infestation, and they have the ability to warp units all around the map, so they could have sent some support. This mission would have made more sense if there are a large number of spore colonies, which would attack the ships and reveal the location of Dark Templar, and Artanis provided the extra forces needed to remove the spore colonies. In The Last Stand, no one considers using the Zelnaga Temple to clear Shakuras of the Zerg, even though it did just that in Brood Wars. It's also not explained why the Dark Templar no longer have the Uraj and the Khalis. This mission would have made more sense if Vorazon said that the Uraj and the Khalis were destroyed by the hybrids, so now their only option is to overload the temple. While in this mission I do like how, as the number of Zerg increase, it feels like you're fighting a steadily increasing army, it still doesn't make any sense why there aren't any Void Thrashers in this mission, when they're able to warp anywhere on the map in the previous one. This seems to be an example of the writers not thinking through how one mission would affect another one. Finally, weakening Amon was a good idea, as it can be used to explain why he won't be able to use Zerg in other missions, though they should make him more likely to use the Protoss instead. Regarding characters, it's interesting to see how Artanis and Carax react to losing their nerve cords, and how they deal with Zeratul's death. It was also good that they addressed that Artanis seems to have new abilities in the cutscene. Though Vorazon does mention that Artanis is now a Dark Templar, they don't really build on what this would mean for a former High Templar. Finally, while Rohanna provides a lot of background information for new players, she seems to only exist so Artanis can condemn her for being wrong. It's also disappointing that of the 5 Protoss heroes from In Utter Darkness, Urun is unnamed in Heart of the Swarm and killed by Kerrigan's forces. Mohandar was killed off-screen during a Dark Templar rebellion against the High Templars on Shakuras. Zeratul died at the start of the campaign. Selendis was corrupted, and only Artanis is playing an active role in the plot, especially since the deaths of Urun and Mohandar aren't even mentioned in-game. In conclusion, these missions have an okay plot, and I believe they're poorly explained rather than an attempt at a retcon. The character interactions are also fine for the moment.